put some new strings on this guitar recently because I want to start using it for recording. I was hoping to use it the weekend, but to be fair, the action's just so high on it and there is a problem with the neck that I thought it needs setting up properly before it's used. I've got a straight edge, I've got a string winder, and I've got some bits and bobs that I hope will come in handy, and some sandpaper. The action on this guitar is just way too high. Now, the obvious thing to seem to do would be to just lower the bridge, which would bring it down here, but the guitar's got more problems than that. I mean, an easy way I check the neck is if you hold this end and this end together. I'm going to stick a capo on there, so that'll hold that on that nut, and if you hold this end, that there creates a straight edge with this string, and if I touch that down now, there doesn't seem an awful lot of movement there, to be fair. So in a way, the neck does seem quite straight. The only problem is the string's touching along to about here, and then that's kind of where it stops. So you're only really going from there to there. Now from there to there, it's virtually straight. But from here to here, the neck's going one direction, and then the neck tilts down from there. So from here, there's a problem with the neck going down. I'm not quite sure if I can fix it, but I'm going to have a go, because the neck needs to be put right, and then any adjustments to the bridge can be made then. There's no point in making adjustments to the bridge and bringing this lower. That'll just make this section even worse. So first of all, I'm going to loosen off the strings, get the strings down. I don't have to take them off, but I do need to loosen them all down so then I can work on the neck. So now I've loosened the strings and the neck's quite open now. Now with this guitar, sometimes the truss rod adjustment will be at the top of the neck here, and sometimes it'll be here, and you'll need an Allen key. And they can change in size, so I'm not quite sure which size this one needs, but I've got quite a large one here, so I'm hoping this will be the right size. Yeah, and that's the right one for this neck. This is what you're going to need, an Allen key. And once it's slotted in place, it'll sit there quite comfortably. I mean, make sure you get it in, because if you don't push that in far enough, you'll start rounding it off. If you've got a really good guitar, you're better off trying something like this on a cheap guitar first, not your prized possession. You know. I'll try and show you now how far this neck is out. I've got a straight edge here, and the little grooves go in between the frets. And unfortunately on this one, it does fit the guitar. If it doesn't, what I sometimes do is put them actually on top of the frets, if they won't go in between on it, because there's two different sizes as well. So that one there, which clearly doesn't fit on this guitar, so if you went for the actual touching, but this side does fit on this one anyway. So, but if I hold it on this edge here, I think you can see the gap there is enormous, but if I kind of roll it, it's kind of there, so on that part there, it's not too bad, but it's still bad. And then the further you come up the neck, the actual difference is massive. It's really massive on these end frets here, so it is curving there. Turning it, and you go so far and it'll stop, and you're coming back out, and then you've got to relocate the hole, which is sometimes easier said than done. And again, and do bits at a time, and then recheck the neck and see how it's doing. Now I've had a really good play with this now, adjusting the truss rod, and that's the best it will go. But from about the 20 frets, it's only really the last fret, they're all touching now along, but this last one here really does dip down into the guitar, and it's just so out. But the rest of them now do look nice and flat along there. You know, if I hold it down here tight, you know, it lifts very slightly, but I'm not going to get it any better than that, but it's hardly at all. And as I come down the neck, pushing on the neck along there, it is really flat now. So that's the best I can get that neck. So now when I adjust the bridge, hopefully now we'll get a nice action, or the best action I can on this guitar. Rather than just going straight and taking anything off the bridge, I have put them back on just to look first to see if anything else does need doing, and yes, some does need to come off the bridge. Now to get the bridge out, I have loosened the strings off a lot and taken them off. The bridge on this fortunately is really loose. Some of them are tighter than others, but that's the bridge coming out. Now sometimes there is a little bit of plastic or something underneath. I don't know what's underneath this one, and sometimes there's a little strip, but you need to be careful because sometimes that is actually the pickup. So I'll have a look in here. There is a strip inside this one, but you don't want to touch them because that is actually the pickup in here. Sometimes they are loose and they come up. I'm not going to disturb it, to be fair, but there is there inside. But sometimes there's little bits of plastic that the manufacturers or people have made them to build up the bridge. They can come out, so that's a good time to sort of take them out, put the bridge back in and just see if that will adjust the bridge enough. But in this case there is nothing underneath this bridge. Now, because I need to take so much off in places on this bridge, I've decided to cut some little grooves into it as well. So I've marked it with the Stanley knife there, and that first groove there where I want to do. I'm going to take that string out now. I'm just giving you a closer look at what I've done there with that piece there, so you can see, if you can see the indentation where the string will be going through on that bit and not there, because it does need coming down that much. I've done it this way. I'm going to do each string along. Now, as I am doing each string, I am taking each one out, marking where it needs to be cut, and then making the adjustment then. So I've finished making adjustments to the nut. On the top here I've left it really because it's low enough. The action on it now is really low. The neck is as straight as it can be. But on the base the strings are a bit too low. So I do need to raise this bridge up a little bit, so I'll show you how I do that now. I've removed a couple of strings and a couple of the pegs. The bridge has come out again now. Now I know this end of the bridge is okay, it's this end of the bridge that needs lifting. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a bit of padding in this end of the bridge to build it up. So you can use a bit of paper or whatever else I use. So I've got some paper here, I'm going to cut it, and you'll be amazed how little you need, and it will make a big difference. And because it's only this end, I'm just going to make a small piece to fit in this end for now, and get it to lie flat on top of that. So now it's really obvious to tell which side of the bridge goes in where because of the grooves. Now obviously that seems to have lifted it up an awful lot, but I will try it anyway. Now we just need to get this bass string, because once the bass string's right then I'll know the rest of it will be right. So I only really need to check this one string, and if I can get this bass one, I'm actually going to take a piece out of that and see how it is with the other one. I mean that plays nicely now at that level, but I'm just going to take it out and see if it can go a bit lower. Now I'm going to go with that. That seems really nice at a nice level. So I've put a little bit of paper just to lift that up, and that should just run down there now. So hopefully now once it's all strung up, the action will be a lot better and it's going to play a lot nicer than it was. Now the guitar, as far as the neck is concerned, is as straight as I'm going to be able to get it. The bridge now is as low as I can go without affecting too much. These lower frets here could do with a little bit of leveling, and that would make an improvement there. But the strings here are still quite high at this end of the neck. Adjusting that anymore is not going to change this, because it will just affect here too much anyway. The only way of doing that now is by reducing this nut. And this nut was glued in, and what I did, I just very lightly tapped here and it has unglued it. Some of them will just come out anyway. I mean there's a small groove there, but the only way adjusting this, I don't recommend trying to make these grooves any deeper. It's just persevering now and time and sanding this down and taking that level down to reduce the strings here, and that should then give it the best action this guitar can get. So that's what I'm going to do next. Again, it's a case of doing so much, putting it back on and then doing a bit more, and I put it back on. But now obviously because the nut's not glued, if you have to put both sides in, because if you take this side off, the nut will tend to slip like that. So you will need to put these strings back on here just to give it a bit more support on this side of the neck, and then the nut will stay in place, and then you can check it. Right, now I've done it a few times and had it in and out, and now the gap from there you can hardly see it. I mean it's so close to the string now on this end, and say this end's already been done, so now that's really nice. So I just need to tune it up now. So that's set up now. I've altered the bridge, I changed the truss rod, I've altered the nut depth here now, so if you can see that now, but I could probably take a little bit more off that, to be honest with you. But I didn't bother gluing back in the nut after it was done. I just put it back in and just tighten the strings up, and that'll hold it in place. There is a little slot where the actual nut goes anyway, so it fits in snugly, but it was glued in originally, but it wasn't overly glued in, fortunately. If you do go a bit too low on that, you can always just add a little bit of paper underneath again, but just take your time on that one really, because it's a bit more awkward than the bridge. And that's the setup of an acoustic guitar.